Hey everyone, hope you're having a good day. Cause I'm not, cause I had to review Transformers The Last Night. Transformers The Last Night is thankfully the last movie in the Michael Bay Transformers franchise. This might be a weird line to start my review off with, but it's honestly, what? 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 That is genuinely the only thing I could possibly fathom to think about by the end of this movie. My mind was in such sheer confusion and out of patience for this movie as it continued with every shot. The story is barely there yet again, and while they try and build more of a backstory with it, it's just the most convenient and complicated shit in the movie's current setting for the characters. It starts off with a medieval scene where Merlin is given this magic staff from a Transformer knight. The actor who plays Merlin is also the bald guy named Joshua in the fourth movie, which contradicts so much on a logistic scale that it's just not worth trying to figure out. So apparently after the fourth one, this movie is just straight up post-apocalyptic, where Transformers are just all over the world now, and people are just kind of coexisting with them, I guess. And Optimus is in space, so there's really no one to lead. So Kate is trying to protect a group of Autobots and keep them safe, and they're in a junkyard, and they're living with the Dinobots, who also have a Dinobot babies. Honestly, don't even ask. I don't know either of how that works. But it's just stupid, chaotic bullshit constantly, and he says his daughter's in college, which I guess is like the one thing that makes okay sense in this movie since she was close to graduating in the fourth one. But beyond that, the military is still after all of these Transformers, and it shows this young girl who is overly confident about her battling skills and just happens to know a fuck ton about the anatomy of Transformers. And she meets Cade and just doesn't do anything in the movie. She's literally just there to exist, and I just hate it. Cade tries to save a robot he finds in a street, and this one robot just happens to give him this talisman that's part of the Knights from a long ago. He goes on a chase scene, and eventually this extremely violent butler C-3PO robot is there, and he says he needs to come with him to England, so he does, and he meets this Professor Vivian, and she's a descendant from Merlin, and she can only use and activate this staff. Kate and Vivian are told about all of this backstory lore with the Knights and Merlin and shit from, I think, Andy Hopkins, and honestly, he's not giving two shits, and he's just having fun with the character, which is kind of one of the better characters because he knows this is just utter shite, so he's just not even gonna care, and he's just gonna roll with it and let it go. So then they call Agent Simmons, because I guess he's relevant and needs to be a part of this movie for some reason, and he tells them where the location of Merlin's tomb is to be able to find the staff. It's underwater, which they don't necessarily explain, but they all just end up getting in some chase because it's been a while since there's been some action. So they're heading to this dock, right? And they just happen to get into a submarine that's just sitting there. And I'm like, okay, it wasn't locked, and they kick everyone off. Like it's an active submarine. People are on this. Like they're doing whatever their job is supposed to be doing. But we got to get off for fucking Mark Wahlberg to be like, I need the staff. Anyways, they yeet off and are soon followed by the military. And during this scene of them trying to outrun the military underwater, the C-3PO robot yeets out, comes back with fish, and he beats them and serves them up as a romantic dinner for Cade and Vivian. Now, while you'd think, okay, this is just a traveling scene, it's a bit of a low point for characters to maybe have some dialogue. Um, yeah, Michael Bay takes a different route, and honestly, I just don't know what to think of this. This is genuinely the most brain damaging scene I've ever watched in any movie. It literally comes out of nowhere and forces a scene that wasn't established at all just to have the most forced relationship to ever show on screen. It's just truly horrible, to be honest, okay? Anyway, they make their way to the tomb, and of course there's these undead zombie robot knights that have been protecting his grave. And Vivian is able to activate the staff because she's the only one with magic, like a normal movie is. So I've kind of glossed over the fact that Optimus isn't in the movie that much, but yeah, remember that last scene of the fourth one where he yeets off into space? Apparently Optimus is an absolute puss baby because he goes barely out of orbit and he's instantly frozen. He's just instantly capped out. He just has no help, no assistance whatsoever. And I'm like, well, this is really stupid. But he ends up finding some sort of Transformers alien ship, and it's got the prime of life. And I don't really remember her name exactly, but she's like this weird Medusa looking chick. Optimus lands on the ship, and she traps him in chains, and he is absolutely her new puss boy, which is not exactly something I needed to see in a Transformers movie, but it's there, and it's weird. So they get the staff, and they're trying to escape. And as they're trying to leave, Nemesis Prime, and he's being mind controlled by the Prime of Life chick, and she wants him to just get the staff at all costs, so he's almost going to kill Bumblebee, and then all of a sudden, literally out of Bumblebee's ass, he just uses his normal voice. And up until this point, he's used, like, the car's radio and things like that, but all of a sudden he can just use his voice, and it snaps Optimus Prime out of the trance, and he's back to normal. Unfortunately, Megatron also had other plans, and he snatches the staff and takes it to the Stonehenge. You know, that land monument that, like, a naked scientist ran around in Thor the Dark World? Wow, it's so weird how so many shit movies use that location. Anyways, he activates the staff and it starts sending energy from Earth to the planet with the Prime of Life. She's controlling this weird, half-broken planet thing the whole movie, and its trajectory in the movie causes it to smash through Earth's moon and then start to collide with Earth. The Earth starts to levitate chunks of land, and the characters team with the military, like every movie, and they try and get the staff and deactivate it. They honestly do it in the most mind-numbing, chaotic, boring way. It's just a ton of special effects, make up a giant battle to mean another giant battle with Transformers bullshit everywhere. They're able to take out the staff, and it stops the destruction of Earth, and the Prime of Life is somehow not dead, but alive. And as an Eternal, by the way, that's a future movie reference, and she basically tries to tease that Unicron is coming. It was honestly pointless to set that up, since the franchise is done, and it looks like they shut Michael Bay down at just the right time, or else he would have made the worst and most atrocious attempt of a film as possible. Now, this movie's long, like all of Michael Bay's Transformers movies, and it honestly does a lot, but also does nothing at the same time. And to keep you engaged for 2.5 hours with a lot of bullshit going on is honestly a high level of manipulation for Michael Bay to have.
Genius.
They try and throw in some knights and medieval lore shit in there, but the story is still basically non existent. The characters are all two-dimensional at best. The soundtrack basically doesn't exist and is just super generic, and the visuals are even worse somehow. The Transformers look too weird and humanoid for them to be interesting to watch. It's trying to be all happy that they won and everyone who matters is still alive, and Cade asks out Vivian because apparently their useless romantic relationship has any worth whatsoever. But it just doesn't matter because they're almost minor characters with how little personality we know about them. Now, one of the things I didn't point out, and is probably one of the more glaring things that is wrong with this movie, is that you may have noticed Megatron is back. Now, Megatron's been back not once, not twice, but 3 butt fucking times now. And this time is just worse. They just don't explain it. They just don't go over it whatsoever. And it's just like, why? And they don't explain where Galvatron went, because that's how it ended in the last movie. He ran off like a puss baby. And they don't explain where he is. They don't explain how he became a new Transformer, why he's Megatron now, not Galvatron. It's just not a lot of any sense whatsoever. And for whatever reason, we're gonna blow past the entire logistics plan and idea that the military is deciding to team up with Megatron, but he basically requests that they release his squad from captivity. If you're asking what squad, well, guess what? It's a fucking Suicide Squad, because they basically rip off the entire montage of showing a bunch of evil characters like they did in the dog shit Suicide Squad movie in 2016. Yeah, Michael Bay actually thought it would be smart to take inspiration from an absolute horseshit movie to put in his absolute horseshit movie. But for what it's worth, it was kind of a funny scene, just out of just pure zero context, and it was just amusing to watch. There's just honestly so many little things that constantly make no sense, or sometimes rip off other things from other movies. Like, the butler looks like C-3PO, and the drones they have almost look like TIE fighters from Star Wars. There's some like Star Wars things in here. There's some Suicide Squad things in here. There's probably some other shit in here that I just don't give enough shit about. This movie and the fourth one are also unnecessarily aggressive and angry at each other for no reason. And I mean, like, the dialogue between the characters. And it's just so much forcefully angry lines between characters because if they weren't, it would be tame enough to see that there's genuinely nothing remotely interesting or redeeming about any of these characters. With the fourth movie and this one, I also found that I didn't know characters' names till like the last 30 minutes or so. And when you have a movie that's consistently over 2 hours, and I don't generally know some of the new characters or main characters' names, I'm always just going to be referring to them as that one military guy or the old guy that they went to that one time. So it's clearly no secret Michael Bay didn't want to make more Transformers movies, and so he was kind of just going through the motions even less. He probably wasn't even on set for half this, I'd imagine. But it's no secret that he and the writers also cannot name shit. Like, sometimes they have cool names for Transformers, or they're from, like, the original's creations and stuff, like Optimus and Bumblebee and stuff. But the people are literally taken out of everyone's asses. Like Lennox, Epps, Cade, the most basic white name ever, Sam. And honestly, the Holy Grail, which is one of the Transformers, is Nitro Zeus. I don't know how you come up with this or why. It's like they're slapping letters together or just trying to put things in, and autocorrect comes out with these random, like, weird words or phrases, and they're like, oh, that could be a name. I don't know. I just don't know how they do it, but it's just so bad. So I know this review is a lot different than my other reviews, or hell, even my other Transformers reviews, okay? And I know I haven't really gone over any concrete, like, plot or story, but I think it's like Cade and some Autobots go meet up with, like, the old guy who knows all about the, like, the medieval Merlin stuff because Cade has, like, this special talisman. And with the hot teacher Vivian, she's also like a descendant of Merlin. And so the two of them go and try and retrieve the staff to do something. I actually genuinely do not know or remember, and I'm not going to look it up because I watched this movie 2 months ago. And it gets snatched. It's in the hands of the evil Prime of Life chick. She tries to destroy Earth after destroying the moon, and then fails, and the movie ends. And that, I think that's about it. This movie is absolutely confusing, atrocious, prolonged horseshit that leaves you exhausted and wishing you could live a life where it never existed. And I just wanted to turn the fucking TV off so many times because shot after shot, it just made it worse, till I thanked God it was over. One of the best things about these movies was the soundtrack, but the memory of Steve Jablonsky will always remain. But when it all ended, he was nowhere to be seen except a few seconds where you could hear the faint music notes of his brilliance. To the soul of the Transformers, thank you, Steve Jablonsky. After suffering for many hours and trying to find the key points in telling a story and not being able to find a single one besides the fact that the movie starts and ends, I just found myself so brain dead that saying what and questioning what was really all I was feeling and all I could think or say as the credits appeared. You know, when I go back and I see something like this, and it's just really, really upsetting and honestly actively offensive if someone calls this a film. You can call it a movie. It's a movie. But if you call it a film, I will be offended because that implies that it's the art of storytelling, that there's some level of care put into this, and there's just none here. And I absolutely despise it for that. I think that's honestly gonna just about do it for my review of Transformers The Last Night. I think if I were to give this a rating like the other Transformers movies, I think I'd have to give this a confident fuck you, Michael Bay out of 10 because there's really no other feeling that I have going into this than that, to be honest. Well, everyone, I hope you guys enjoyed my reviews of the Transformers movies. This is the last one for a while, and if you enjoyed the video, I'd say enjoy the movie, but we both know that's a lie. If you enjoyed the video and maybe want to check out some of my other reviews, you guys can. But I want to say thank you guys all so much for watching. And if you enjoyed, stay tuned for more movie reviews in the future. And I will see